Hello there, I'm the Biblical Translator, and so called because I not necessarily translate the Bible, but I tend to just try to make it a bit easier and bring it into present day. So I kind of read it and then I try to get my understanding from it, and then I share the understanding with you. So today's scripture, I've been going through the New Testament. I'm now up to Corinthians 7 verse 2, which says, yes, it is good to abstain from sexual relationships or sexual relations, but because there is so much sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman should have her own husband. The husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's sexual needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. Do not deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time, so that you can give yourself more completely to prayer. And I would imagine that health situations come into that as well as a reason for abstaining or refraining. So when I read the part that said the wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife, it made me think of 50 Shades of Grey for some reason. And we have to be careful how we interpret what is written in the Bible. You have to remember that marriage is the foundation, and it's supposed to be built on love, respect, and sensitivity and caring. A marriage is about supporting each other and going through the thick and thin with each other, using good communication. It doesn't say all of this in the Bible, but it's implied when the marriage is based off of love. But there again is a marriage based off of love. In the Bible, back in the day, was it a business relationship? Was it a relationship of convenience? Was it a relationship just to so you could have legal or moral sexual relationships? Was it because some people, they just get married as an excuse, just so they've got someone to have sex with, and so they're not fornicating. They don't want to be fornicating and disobeying God's commands. So there's different reasons why people get married. You also have arranged marriages. Some arranged marriages work out really well. Some arranged marriages not so well. But the forced marriages, that's something totally different. That usually has not very good outcomes. And can you imagine if you're in a forced relationship and somebody is reading the Bible and taking it word for word from this? The poor female spouse wouldn't stand a chance in hell of having any authority over her body. So we have to remember that the body is a temple. That's the first thing. If a body is a temple, it's a temple of God. It mustn't be abused. It mustn't be taken advantage of. It's not about having a sexual addiction. So it's about, like I said, a loving relationship, a mutually sensitive relationship, and a caring relationship. So while people can interpret this scripture any which way they want, but when you're thinking about marriage in the context of this scripture, it seems to be marriage as a not as an excuse, but marriage as a reason not to be sexually immoral, not to have lustful thoughts, not to be going with prostitutes. It seems to be a safe haven to have sex. And some people, they have sex and it's absolutely fine and it's absolutely wonderful. Supposing you have sexual incompatibilities, thing is, marriage doesn't guarantee good sex. Marriage doesn't guarantee frequent sex. There's some people have health issues. As women get older and they're going through the menopause, they may not even want to have sex. And so, does a marriage really guarantee a safe haven for sex? I think it has to be more. Marriage has to be more than being I don't even know what that word is, but as a reason for sex then. Marriage has to be about wanting to support each other outside that arena. You know, there are other requirements to marriage. Emotional support, psychological support, financial support. There's a lot of elements that go into a marriage. Raising children, keeping house. Lots of things that go into a marriage. And it's not just about having a place to have sex when everything else outside that sexual arena is chaotic. So we need to kind of think about, what is this actually saying? Is it about sex on demand when you're married? Is that what this is saying? Because some people can interpret it that way. And like I said, you know, I work in a domestic abuse environment, and a lot of men expect it from their wives. And when their wives are not in the mood or they don't want to give it, they force it as though it's a right. Now, they're now saying, the government is now saying, that a husband can actually rape his wife, and it's a crime. You force your wife to want to have sex with you, or vice versa. A woman forces her husband, although I'm not quite sure how that works, but you know, vice versa. It's a crime to force someone to have sex. So sex has to be voluntary. It has to be loving. It has to be coming from a loving place. It has to be coming from a nurturing place. But some would argue back in the day it didn't have to. It was a woman's job. It was a chore for the woman. A woman just used to lie there, they used to say, and think of England. It wasn't something for a woman to enjoy. It was an act where a man would use her to procreate, relieve his sexual frustrations, and have children. That was the woman's role back then. A woman wasn't meant to enjoy sex. And now women are making demands, sexual demands. And it is saying here that a husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's sexual needs. What happens when those sexual needs then become distorted? What about husbands that demand oral sex or anal sex, and it goes against the principles and the morals of the wife? What happens then? Is she meant to do it just because it says so in the Bible, that you must satisfy your husband's needs? And then vice versa, when it's saying, conversely, when it's saying, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. Yeah. So if the husband is meant to fulfill his wife's needs, he's meant to take into consideration her views and her feelings about sexual relationships. They need to have that conversation. And I think a lot of people take it for granted that everything will be hunky-dory when they get married. They also assume that getting married guarantees good sex. It doesn't. You have men with diabetes, which makes them impotent. It can make them impotent, or unable to get an erection. And you have women with all kinds of problems as well. So it doesn't guarantee. There has to be more to the relationship and the marriage than sex. So just think carefully about your reasons for getting married and what I've just spoke about in the Bible. What else is there? Yes, it's good to abstain from sexual relationships. And then it says about prayer. You can abstain because of prayer, but that implies that you're not